Welcome everybody to this breakout session. It's about closing the loop in sustainable procurement. It's great to have you, dear audience, joining us here. I'm really excited to discuss within the next, I think it's 25 minutes, together with my three guests, and I will introduce those three guests very soon to discuss about probably one of the most actually crucial challenges and questions for every procurement executive, and it's how to make a sustainable impact in procurement and how to scale it. What are the trigger points? What trigger points do you need? How do you create impact and bring it to life? What are key enablers to achieve momentum, and what are actually do's and don'ts when you embark on your sustainability journey? And who could better answer these questions and share their experiences on it than my three CPO guests from three different industries, and all of them being real sustainability champions, all of them working for companies who put sustainability high on the CEO agenda, and all of them really are into it and not only providing lip confessions. And I dare to say all the three have also a personal passion for sustainability. And I'm happy to introduce Marielle Bayer. She's currently CPO at Roche, and before that, she worked for Zurich Insurance Company. Welcome, Marielle. Great to have you here. Lynn de Proft, CPO at Solvay currently, and before that, she was VP Global Procurement and Sustainability at Anheuser-Busch, beer drinking company. I like that personally very much. Welcome, Lynn. And Martina Buchhauser. Until recently, she was CPO of Volvo Cars. Before that, she was in leading procurement positions at BMW, MAN, and General Motors. My name, I have the honor to moderate this panel now. I'm Harald Enz, managing partner at HNZ, specialized on procurement consulting. And for you as attendees, fire your questions in the chat. We will try to answer some of those questions at the end of the session so that we also have a little bit of discussion here. Thanks again for joining. So let's get started. Actually, for CPO to kick off a sustainability program, you usually need also somewhat of a trigger point. Marielle, what was the trigger point within Roche?
Yeah, Harold, I can think of a few things, and maybe I'll start with from my perspective, the most important one, and that is, having active sponsorship from the top. So our vice chairman, Andrew Hoffman, is such an ambassador for sustainability, such an active spokesperson, and of course that sets the tone at the top for what we want to achieve as an organization, but also as a society. So I think that being one trigger point, and that amongst many other things also led to the formulation of the Roche Sustainability Strategy, a strategy that many organizations have, I suspect, with an environmental pillar, a societal pillar, and an economical pillar. And of course, the environmental pillar being the one where we play in procurement. There's a second element, though, and that is that 2 years ago, Roche articulated very bold business ambitions. So, for example, in pharma, doubling the medical advances at half the cost to society, or reducing our environmental impact, the total environmental impact that Roche has by half. And those are, for me, such powerful anchors, right? Again, that ask us to systematically embed sustainability also in the procurement strategy and to contribute, because you just simply need to do things very differently and radically different. And I think finally there's, I would say perhaps a personal motivation here. A few years ago, I partnered with a colleague in the North American supply chain on the topic of modern slavery, so a human rights topic. This was just something where we felt, what can we do, right? Because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's happening in all parts of our supply chain. I might talk to that a little bit later, but the point I want to make is, as leader and procurement professional, I think we're given the freedom and the platform to do something meaningful right? And this is just one area and one contribution where, you know, I can contribute, but also lead the way and engage my organization. So in my mind, those are some of the triggers that really led to this uplifting of sustainability into our strategy, Harold.
Great, thank you. I mean, the whole topic of purpose certainly is very important, and also the topic of top-down steering of that, and of a top-down commitment. Martina, what was your trigger point within Volvo Cars?
Yes, and I'm going to talk a bit about my last assignments, so to speak. So I think in general, there has always been a big focus on protecting the environment and fair treatment of resources. And I think slowly over the last years, it was also understood that focusing on sustainability makes a lot of great business sense, because we have seen that customers are actually asking for it. And believe it or not, one day I have received a question from the sales organization to say, well, can you tell us where the cobalt in the batteries that we sell in our cars comes from? Because customer ABC wants to know that. So I felt like, wow, this is great. And it was the culmination of all of the great work we have done. It was basically proven that it is worth so much. So investors are asking for it, customers are asking for it. And I think that has made quite a big of a shift in the industries to a more, sustainability makes a lot of business sense. So why not do it? Why not take care of it? And but there are, I think we as procurement leaders, we have to make aware of some of the things that are out there. Because yes, people don't want to do wrong, but I think, you know, sometimes there is a high focus on technology, there is a high focus on leveraging new technologies, and then you need to make sure that you understand what's happening. And once you see that there is some wrongdoing going on, I think we as a procurement organization and leaders have the obligation to make aware of it. I think that is something that we can stand for as a procurement team. And this is kind of what has triggered me. When I first started with Volvo Cars, there might not have been such a huge target out there from a company perspective, but we were confronted with sourcing batteries, and of course, some of the things you have heard about child labor and all of these really not great pictures being out there. But instead of putting the head in the sand and not doing anything about it, we have motivated the team and empowered the team that doing the right things and making transparent what's going on and doing something about it is the right thing to do. And so my trigger here was all of these pictures, but then going into, all right, we're going to do something about this. We're going to make this part of our decision-making process.
Yeah, and I think especially in the car industry, demand from customers will surely increase even more in the future. So you're forced, or OEMs are forced to do something. Yeah, that's right. Lynn, what was the trigger point at Solvay?
Yes, the big turning point, and it's actually recent, right? 2 years ago at Solvay, we launched the renewed sustainability ambitions, right? We call that the One Planet Roadmap. And it was big, it was bold, it was holistic, it was inclusive and measurable, right? And I think it started with that. So there were 10 measurable commitments, and in line with the Paris Agreement, and also 3 key focus areas, right? Climate, resources, and better life or social progress. And then we raised the bar again, because we committed to the Science-Based Target Initiative, right? So this means reducing our own emissions further, but including the value chain. And a company's strategy is not separate from procurement, right? In fact, we're not a procurement company, right? So procurement, serves to enable business success. So we anchored a renewed sustainability vision into that company vision. And we had to extend that big ambition also to our supply base, right? And transforming probably all those many encouraging projects that we had in place to really something really systematic, right? And that's when we launched our supplier sustainability program with a very big focus on collaboration. I think you mentioned it as well, Marielle, but it's not about doing this alone, but really an end-to-end approach from supplier to customers and really pushing the whole ecosystem towards that greater sustainability. So that was really, we had to step up our game, frankly speaking. And I think on a personal note, I mean, you probably see the passion. You cannot do that if you're not having a personal interest. And it was, a couple of years ago, working in a beverage company, right, where you literally saw huge amount of plastics, right, floating, with the company brands on the beach. And I remember buying, his name was Ivan, typical Gen Z, buyer, come to me and say, I don't want to buy high content plastic anymore. I want to make it go away, right? And it showed really the impact we can have in the value chain on the reputation of a company, but also as a force for good. Harold, back to you.
No, thanks. That's great, because I think you also, if you look at your customers and at your products and service, I mean, isn't it probably just the first point also of a sustainability journey to look if your products are actually credible to give you kind of a position as a sustainability leader? I would imagine, Lynn, that this is also very important to get momentum in your company.
Yes, absolutely. And, we like to say at Solvay, we have one eye, so we're a chemistry company, right? One eye on the microscope, so serving, urgent customer needs, but one eye on the telescope. And that's really about staying relevant in the market, right? So pushing innovation. And in this case, we identify growth platforms, right? Centering around sustainable solutions, because we believe our future relevance is linked to sustainability. And we have growth platforms in green hydrogen, in thermoplastic composites, in batteries, right? And these are, if you like, solutions for clean mobility. And in particular on batteries, we're not only producing them, but we're also giving spent batteries a new life. So we've partnered with our supplier Veolia and our customer Renault to make a really, circular ecosystem. But I guess it goes beyond, clean mobility, right? Focusing on natural food ingredients, right? So we take the rice husk you normally throw away, we extract ferulic acid, it becomes raw material for, natural vanillin, right? And I can give plenty of those examples, but it's linked to our license to operate. And by the way, having 65% of our revenues coming out of sustainable solutions is a goal. We're at 50% today. That's not enough, but it gives my organization the credibility also to be big and bold in the sustainability program, right? As you say. Mm-hmm. So, and one extra data point probably is that, we've seen 73% of the Gen Z generation is willing to pay more for sustainable solutions. And we see it in solid shampoos, low carbon solutions. So again, it's a customer pull. And if we want to be there for the next 100 years, we better jump on the train and do good while we also have business success. Mm-hmm.
Great, yeah, right. So to summarize it, you actually need as a starting point probably two things. You need a good trigger point, and you need kind of a credible product strategy for the market. But then the question is, okay, if you have this now, how do you bring it to life? How do you start a sustainability program? How do you create impact, and how do you scale it? Because at the end of the day, it's about not nitty-gritty. You have to scale it to get momentum in the company. Marielle, how did you do that?
Yeah, I think we haven't done it, Harold. I think it's a journey, right? It's a gigantic task. And I think all of us here share that aspiration, right, of wanting to get there. What I would say, I'm a fan of and believer of small bets. I really want to focus what we do on outcomes, impact, solutions, and so I take pride when in my organization I see that we kicked off a program, for example, in the UK market, where we leveraged our buying power as Roche, right, and extended those favorable terms for renewable energy to all of our supply base, and we got huge adoption. That's for me what makes the difference, and those great conversations with some of our strategic partners on what they can do to reduce their CO2 footprint. I'm probably not alone here, but our scope 3, right? So our supply base makes up for 94% of all of Roche's greenhouse gas emissions. That's huge. So we need to start with our partners without a doubt. And yet, I want to make sure we start small, we make this credible, and then, you know, scale it up to the extent that is possible. But, you know, what a big task ahead of all of us, and you know, I'm glad I have, you know, a great team and increasing interest, you know, within the procurement organization and beyond to accomplish what's ahead of us.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. I mean, of course, it's a journey, and it never ends probably. I mean, from the external perspective, if you look at Volvo, I mean, they are kind of the sustainability leader in the car industry, Martina. I would be interested, how did you bring it to life? What did you do?
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. And I think it's a matter of, as Marielle said, you have to start in pockets and celebrate those successes and examples. I think that's good to bring more people onto this journey, because it is not procurement alone who can run this. It's a very much a cross-functional undertaking, and you know, the top management has to be all for it, and of course you need R&D, you need manufacturing, you need all your peers in this process to make it happen, especially when it comes to changing products, changing materials, and so on, because it will always be, you know, a lot of testing and homologation and everything to make the product safe. But I also think that yes, celebrating those successes that you see in pockets and that people create, but you also have to have kind of an operating model, how the whole procurement organization, you know, with so many people can actually do it. But the first thing I think is you have to be authentic, and you have to empower people that they can really dare to try new things, dare to go for more sustainable materials and so on, so that, you know, it goes beyond the very traditional price focus, but in your sourcing criteria, you have to anchor sustainability as something on par with cost, with quality, with new technology, you name it. And I think this has made the difference, that, you know, not that it is a 0 or 1 decision. It has created so much good discussion and awareness making with the suppliers specifically, because you can only manage this and achieve this with your suppliers. So for example, you know, pretty much from a risk perspective where, let's say, the biggest issues lie, you know, be it in our industry, it's always like batteries, it's steel, it's aluminum. This is where the heavy CO2 footprint lies, but this is also where, you know, some human rights issues occur. So start there, start a bit risk-based, and then, you know, make sure you go very deep with your suppliers, and make sure your suppliers, your first-tier suppliers, understand that if we don't bring this in order, whatever goes wrong in that sub-supply chain, we're not going to be in business together. So we need to have and find roadmaps how we get there together. And I think that's very important, to work with the supplier on roadmaps, not to exclude smaller suppliers, medium-sized suppliers that might entirely be out of the loop, you know, if you have this yay or nay approach. So you have to anchor it, but you also have to make sure that your team is empowered and entitled to go that route. I think that has made a huge difference. And then, of course, towards the suppliers, you have to be clear. And what I have experienced is that suppliers have all jumped onto this bandwagon. It's not, no one has stopped. And now I must say suppliers are coming in with their great ideas how to make your supply chain more sustainable and even cost competitive.
So it's about, of course, inspiration. You have to get your people in the boat, motivate them, inspire them, but it's also about to consequently break it down into your purchasing criteria, decision-making processes. So to be credible, actually, also towards your people and the suppliers. Interesting. Lynn, from your perspective, what are the key enablers within your company to create that momentum?
Yeah. So first of all, I think there needs to be a general understanding that sustainability driven through procurement it's a source of competitive advantage, right? So and not look through the lens of compliance to start with, right? So and it's important we bring focus when we launch, those programs. So we brought focus. So what are the aspects that matter the most to the stakeholders and ultimately business success, right? Because otherwise everybody starts working on all sorts of initiatives, right, ultimately with little impact. And I think second really is being very intentional and systematic, perhaps unapologetic about capturing value through your sustainability agenda, right? And value has many different dimensions. So, it goes beyond, operational cost savings, but penetration of new markets, happy customers, right? Brand loyalty, risk mitigation, and so on. So track those KPIs and embed them in the objectives and variable compensation ultimately of your people, which we have from top to bottom in the organization. And ultimately collaboration, it was mentioned, I cannot stress it enough. You need to push the entire ecosystem. And a great example, I think, in the chemical industries, Together for Sustainability, right, where we united 30 CPOs, pushing the agenda, collectively sharing, being transparent, and tackling common challenges like CO2, emissions tracking, which is a pretty big deal and very complex. Right. Back to you, Harold.
I think the business case idea is very important. You have to show a business case beyond every action, because, we are not naive. In every company, a business case is what finally matters. Yeah. Thank you. This event is called Digital Procurement World, so we cannot miss to talk about tools and digitization. And what role actually do digital tools play in this journey? Martina, what is your experience here?
Well, first of all, I think DPW 2021 has shown so many great things from a digital tool and a technology side that hopefully so many people have seen and can apply into their systems. Because if we're honest, like major disruptions that we've seen lately, they have shown that our supply chains are pretty vulnerable and easily destroyed, be it global catastrophes, or be it even, local severe events, which happen every day. You kind of sit a bit on a volcano every day. So I think flexibility becomes even more important. We need faster change within the supply chain to alternative sources, and also a more responsive organizational structure. So we want people to focus on the right things, to be flexible and not drown in, data input. So, and this is where, to manage this undertaking of, making supply chains more resilient, making supply chains more sustainable and even competitive, I think we have to utilize more automated and technical ways. And really identify the risk and orchestrate compliant behavior and, making sure that your supply is secured. I think private enterprises, startups that we've seen now in this 2 days event, they just provide the basis and they are the enabler, to run this massive task that procurement has in front of itself.
Yeah, great. So we are running a little bit out of time. I think we can prolong for another 5 minutes. And I would ask you to really answer the last question very short. What tops and flops, what takeaways, 3 maybe, would you recommend your CPO colleagues when they embark on their journey in sustainability? What would that be, Marielle?
So maybe on the top side, Harold, create excitement and grow the community, but also nurture the community. And I think if you start at the top and you have that sponsorship, I think that can be extremely powerful. So I would definitely recommend that. And on the flop side, I would say, Harold, less paper exercises, no white papers, no position papers, but more of the doing.
Yeah, truly spoken. Yeah, Lynn, what do you think?
Yeah, flop is a little bit of a sad word, like a failure or fail forward, right? But it's probably where we learn the most. Just don't fail twice for the same reason. In my case, was really, building capabilities, right? So you can be very passionate. My teams are very passionate. I'm passionate, but if you just drop it and hope it just sort itself out, it's not necessarily having the impact that you seek, right? So what are the right data capabilities that you need? What capabilities does your team need? What are resources? This is a pretty big deal, right? And the technologies of today, right, with the increasing, acceleration of the sustainability agenda overall are not valid anymore for tomorrow, right? So really embracing it always on and allowing your people to bring those outside in perspective. And on top, own the narrative, right? How many times have I heard, well, sustainability, it's expensive, it's maybe boring, and sacrifice growth. Whilst with the right approach, business case and collaboration, like change that paradigm, right? So own that narrative. Sustainability is actually, it's pretty exciting, it's efficient, right? An accelerator or an engine for growth.
Great. Maybe Martina, could you just
quickly? Okay. Let's stop the lip service. Make sure that even people are a bit challenged more now for if we see that there's too much lip service going on, and not the right actions that actually need to follow. I think that is something we need to do, and that brings me to the next point. Surround yourself with new competencies in procurement. Procurement must be beyond price focus, must be an orchestrator, a relationship builder, someone who can also challenge themselves, but also the rest of the organization, and be a collaborator.
Great, thank you. I think we have some questions in the chat, but unfortunately will not have the time to answer it. I think you can be contacted by everybody in the chat for further deep dives and to sharing your experience. But great, thank you to all the three of you to share your interesting insights with us and to spare your time. Actually, you're all busy and we really evaluate that. Thanks to the audience for participating. I hope you could take away some good ideas which you directly could apply in your companies. And yeah, thank you again, and stay healthy and have fun with the last second day of this great event, DPW 21. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.